After the first segment of Raw, which was excellent, it was pretty much nothing from there.
Don't say.
Man, it was
nothing.
Yeah, some of it was pretty bad. I thought the Bayley interview, not the interview itself. The interview itself was fine.
Let me guess. I can tell you exactly what you're going to say.
That awkward finish.
That was so weird.
Well,
like, seriously, was that supposed to... I mean, that was like... She was creepier than Alicia Fox in that segment at the end.
The babyface girl should not be creepy.
She was creepy.
Well, I mean, that's the... So they're turning her heel is ridiculous, although they may do that. Or it could be that they're trying to set up a romance angle with her and Corey Graves, which probably is a... I mean, you never know how these things will work out because sometimes those things do work out, but my gut says that's a terrible idea. So yeah, I was when that thing was over, it was just like, what are they doing with this? And it just really didn't feel right at all. And yeah, that was bad. And then the bear segment was just
hideous.
It was just goofy. And, it was okay. It was okay for about 20 seconds. But then it just kept going.
Which 20?
When Miz like freaked out over everything and figured it out and starts attacking him again, we saw it last week. But then when it just kept going, I don't know. It just looked like a clown show. So whatever. Yeah. And then the main event. I mean, the match never really got that hot. Well, I mean, the thing is, the crowd wasn't hot for hardly anything on that show after the first segment anyway. But the match it was a little bit of a flat match. It was okay, but then you do that double count finish, which I guess was the only way they could get out of it. I mean, I sort of can see that they don't want to change the title, and obviously they don't want to beat the Hardys, so you're kind of limited to a bad DQ or a bad count out or those are your options. So that was just an option to get out of the thing. But it's like, if you're going to do it, why did we need a 2 out of 3 fall match anyway?
Well, we didn't. It was just something different. Well, let's just start at the beginning here. There's a lot to say. Paul and Brock came out for the only good segment on the show. So, as good as it was, the story was, last week on the show, Paul Heyman says he gets choked out by Samoa Joe. He's unconscious. He does a promo later. He says, next week, Brock Lesnar's coming to Raw, and I'm going to unleash the beast. Like, for a week, I thought, man, not really into Raw, but the idea of Lesnar being unleashed, that sounds awesome. I thought of all these things they could do, and him running roughshod. So, him unleashing the beast he came out, and he talked. And he explained that he was going to unleash the beast. Him and Brock smiled all the way down the ramp after Paul got choked out last week. Did this promo on Joe. Said that Joe basically said there are a million Samoans in this business. They're all related, except for one.
Except for Joe.
That's Samoa Joe. And his claim to fame is putting the coquina clutch on Paul Heyman. He said, yes, it is a devastating hold. I was initially worried what would happen if you put it on Brock, but then I realized you would never get it on Brock. So Joe came out. They go face-to-face. Joe headbutts him, and they have a wild brawl. This brawl was great. Angle sends in all the geeks to break it up. Joe and Brock destroy them. They go back at each other. And then they send out the locker room, all the B-team guys. They try to pull him apart. They have a melee. Joe super kicks Brock in the middle of this, knocks him down. It was an awesome segment at that point. Crowds chanting, this is awesome. And that was it. They got sent to the back. We never saw Brock again. He was never unleashed. And that was it.
There was no point. I mean, what else could you do?
Well, when you advertise unleashing the beast and he comes out and talks.
Well, it was just advertising. But, I mean, he got in a fight. I mean, there was nothing to do after that. I mean, you want to get into another fight that's not as good?
Yeah, I want him to be unleashed. I want him to spend the entire show just destroying geeks hither and yon, all up and down the show.
I guess you could
Instead, we got a bear.
Yeah. I guess you could sacrifice Kurt Hawkins and Titus and people like that.
You can sacrifice half this roster.
Well, yeah, you could do that, but I think their feeling is that they had a hot segment. That's the last thing they want you to think about Brock is that segment, and I mean, that was it. Never came back. There was one segment, and that's it.
Well,
I don't know that that's bad. I honestly thought
it wasn't bad, but it could have been better.
Actually, I don't know that it could have been. You don't want to send him out over and over again.
I guarantee Brock coming out in a rage and destroying a bunch of nobodies over the course of a 3-hour Raw, it would have at least been...
Yeah, but what are you building to? You already had the segment. If he had been destroying people all the way up, and then at the end, you have the segment with Joe, that's what it builds to. That would be great.
Let's do that then.
Well, the problem is that they wanted the segment right away because they were afraid that, by 8:30, everybody was going to tune out, or 9 o'clock. So they front-loaded the show, and you couldn't build it. You had to do it first. You didn't have to do it that way. That was a choice. This is
what I'm going to say. All I know is, after having watched wrestling for God knows how long, like, if I were just a fan and this was not my job, like, I would have been out of here at this point. I mean, honest to God, like, they have trained me, the viewer, to know that if there is strong competition, they're not going to try. I know that as a fan now.
Yeah, well, I do think that the show felt like they didn't try.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They've been doing this forever. And
well, actually, they don't. They usually haven't done that. But
no, every time we do this, you'd say this exact same thing. They knew that there was nothing they could do, and so they just gave up. And that's what they did. They gave up on this show.
They didn't give up all last fall. Last fall, they were going against competition every week. They gave up
on particularly big games. They didn't try.
I wouldn't say that.
I'm sure you can go back. I remember talking about that on this show.
No, only against the debate, and the debate was hopeless. That one was hopeless. I mean, they had no choice. This one, I think that they threw in the towel because, again, I think that they felt it was hopeless. I don't know. It's like it's a tough one. I mean, realistically, I could see them throwing in the towel. The best course of action, honestly, would have been to just tell Brock and go, look, this game came up, and but the problem is they advertised him. So, I mean, you don't want to false advertise, so that's not really a good thing. I mean, the game messed with them. So, it would have, it'd have been better if this was the last segment of the show rather than the first, but they panicked. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but they panicked. They threw him out there right away, figuring that the people aren't going to stay, and they wanted people to watch it. And yeah, it hurt the overall quality of the show.
Listen, all I know is in a period where they've got nothing but like hardcore fans, and they've driven off so many casual fans, just another throwaway show. They don't need that right now. Another nothing show on a Monday night. I don't care what the competition was. It was another nothing show.
Well, they did. I mean, they advanced. They did the end zone cast thing for the millionth time. Although I can't say they advanced anything. It was the same old thing.
They had a bear.
The bear. I know.
A pointless 2 out of 3 falls match for a main event.
Yeah. No, I'm not arguing. The show didn't have much after the first segment. But whatever. I don't know what. I don't really have any good answers for you on on the deal. I mean, there's just nothing much. Goldust and R-Truth were good.
They did quick promos. That's it.
Yeah, they were good.
So Elias Sampson comes out, sings a terrible song. Dean Ambrose's music hits. And after 4 weeks of build or whatever, they just do this match on television. It's a total nothing match.
Well, they'd already done the match. This is the second time.
Dean Ambrose completely unmotivated, going through the motions. Miz runs down to interfere. The Drifter hits the dreaded roll-up, but Ambrose actually kicks out. And then he wastes his time running around ringside, playing tag with The Miz, slides into the ring at the last second. Elias Sampson drops a knee, hits his neck breaker, and gets the pin. This was not good.
It was okay. It wasn't much. I mean, didn't have a lot of heat. The thing with Elias Sampson is when he was there at the beginning, he really did have some presence, and he was getting a lot of heat. I was kind of impressed, and then the match started. And it's not like he's bad, but he's definitely not good. And it went too long to where, the people started kind of like, the problem is it's like he's not interesting enough to do a long match right now. And I think that that was a mistake. That probably should have been kept shorter because it did feel, I don't know, I felt like I was losing interest in the match after a couple of minutes when at the beginning of the match I thought it was, hey, look, he's not doing too badly in this match. And the crowd didn't help either. For whatever reason, the crowd they seemed to be into Elias Sampson when he was playing the guitar, but once the bell rang, they only had so much patience for him.
We had another great Gold Dust promo. Dude comes off as a total superstar. This was good. And then...
What are they doing with him?
Well, eventually he'll wrestle Truth. Then we had this segment that was just astonishing. So Kurt Angle runs into Miz backstage, and he says, Miz, what the hell were you doing going out there and messing around with Dean Ambrose? And Miz says, listen, you're too busy dealing with your personal problems. Do your job right. Kurt can't believe he brought that up. And Miz says, you need to do something about Dean. You should fire him or maybe suspend him. And Kurt says, don't ever speak to me that way again.
One of the things is Kurt was mad because he was going, hey, how come you knew about my personal problems? So there was like a little bit of a tease there that maybe there's like something involving Miz or a friend of Miz or someone who's telling Miz stuff. Although perhaps, the TV itself would tell you that, but Kurt it was interesting the way he reacted in the sense of, how did you know this? So there's something there.
So Kurt then says, I'm not doing anything about Dean, and if you have a problem with Dean, do something about it yourself. Which is that's what Miz did, and that's why Kurt was mad at him at the beginning of the segment. Then the segment ended with him telling him to continue doing what he was doing. And Noam Dar and Cedric Alexander doing a promo.
Boy,
this was so dumb.
How many times have I heard Cedric Alexander say, I'm over it, I'm done, this is it, and then it happens again? But this was really bad because she's not there. I guess, they're doing some neck injury gimmick with her, and so they had this idea that she's like watching it on the phone, and I think that it probably sounded like really good on paper.
That's impossible.
But when you actually saw it, it just was like, it's definitely like that. They really definitely want that psycho thing coming out in her and him being, now all of a sudden it's like, instead of being all cocky because he's got the hot girlfriend, now it's like he's that poor miserable guy who's got this hot girlfriend who's a psycho. In 1 week, just all changed.
That's how it happens. Cedric says he's done with Noam Dar. He's done with Alicia Fox. She's FaceTiming Dar. Says she wants Noam to kick his ass tonight, and Cedric says, all right, fine, but this is the last time, for real. So they go out there into the ring. Cedric's in the ring. Noam is coming down the ramp, and he's FaceTiming Alicia, and she's yelling at him. This is all playing out on the big screen.
She's screaming, don't hang up the phone.
It's just beyond horrible. The crowd is hating every second of this. It just goes on forever, like seemingly a full hour of this 3-hour show. And finally he says, I'm just going to put the phone down. I'm not going to hang up. I'm just going to put it down here for a second. Turns around, lumbar check, 1, 2, 3. This right here is why nobody watches 205 Live. This is your advertising on Raw for this show.
Yeah, I know. All these guys that are supposed to be like really... The whole idea of 205 Live, in theory, should be that you're seeing like faster matches with cooler moves. And you don't. You see this. This is like all, especially for like a, the audience that they're aiming for. This is like so all, the whole, I don't know. It's just not. It's obviously not working. So, and this just whatever. I don't know. It's like, where's Cedric going? Is he going for Neville? I mean, it's like
doesn't sound like it. Sounds like it's Tozawa.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem like it. So it's like he's going to be back with them again next week saying that I'm done. It's over.